So,
Yeah, if you touch it, it stops.
it's okay. We have books. We're fine. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Judy Lee Troutman, your service associate this morning, and leading the service is Senior Minister Reverend Dr. T.K. Barger. Our music is led by Jeffrey Maxey over on piano, and today he's joined by our First Unitarian Choir. Jenny Gottman, our Director of Lifelong Learning, will take part in our flower ceremony. Back in the media booth is our media team. Walter McGee is our producer-director. Krista Schneider is on cameras today, and Jeff Slauson is at our soundboard. If you are a visitor here, you might like to look in your pew racks in front of you. We have a few handouts that explain a little bit about our church and our Unitarian Universal religion. Feel free to take one with you if you would like. And if you're a visitor and haven't filled it out, there's a yellow form that you can fill out that can tell us a little bit about you. And if you include your email address, we will make sure that you get our UUFYI. We are a church with no creed. We are only bound by a covenant. Later in the service, I'll invite you to coffee and conversation, which is one of the perks of attending the service on a regular basis in person.
And hi, I'm T.K. Barger. I'm the senior minister, and let me add to Judy's welcome, both to you here in the sanctuary and to the viewers on our Toledo Unitarians YouTube channel. This is our flower ceremony Sunday. Would you like to see some flowers? Why don't we bring some in? All the flowers gathered together for you to take home. Thank you so much. In many Unitarian Universalist churches, in our services, we light a chalice, a flame in a bowl that originated with the Unitarian Service Committee, using a lit chalice to indicate safe spaces in Europe during World War II. Shall we say the words for lighting our chalice together? The words will be on the screen. We are Unitarian Universalists with minds that think, hearts that love, and hands that are ready to serve. Together, we care for our earth and work for friendship and peace in our world.
And now, while we're reciting together, let's say our covenant of our congregation. This is not a creed, but what we share with general agreement and what we as a religious community work toward. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Today, on our minds, in our hearts, and with our spirits, we think of the ways of the world, the state of the nation, the serenity of our own souls. There are people in our circles who, with their family and friends, have challenges of life and death, health and illness, home and travel, financial security, and monetary stress. Decisions are being made by ourselves and by others on how we can live our best lives, which sometimes means aspiring to that and realizing we have moves yet to make to reach aims and goals. And individual and family ways go on with new lives born and many other joys and celebrations. We all have bad days and good. May kindness and gentleness be with us. May we be compassionate to all, as we don't know what other people are going through. So treat one another well, giving dignity and compassion. And may we be glad for their celebrations and for ours. We have on our minds, in our hearts, with our spirits, the fact that there is disaster by nature and disaster caused by humans. That inequality, inequity, and racism are in our societies, and we can do our own parts not to oppress, to celebrate many cultures, to grow in self and universally. And this is the weekend of Memorial Day, a national time of remembering the people with honor and in mourning who have served in the United States military services and who died. Memorial Day has also become an indicator of the unofficial start of summer. And please keep the people, the fighting forces, the supporting staff, the conscientious objectors who some did serve in the military and others outside it, also gave what their consciences would permit to protect and defend the United States. Memorial Day does not mean vacation. It's memory of the people who have helped to make this land one based on democratic principles and freedom of expression. Take the time to remember. Minds, hearts, and souls also come to this being a week past our annual meeting, and already some of the changes approved then are upon this congregation. May we make it as smoothly as possible through a difficult transition. One reason we join in religious gatherings is to realize common links. The uncommon is here too. Let's be together in faith, hope, and love, physically and in spirit. You might have your own items for meditation, contemplation, and prayer, so we include the unsaid here as we are in community. We can share burdens and be glad for accomplishments. And now we're proceeding in a different order, and it's time for our flower ceremony. Judy Lee Troutman, our service associate, Jenny Gottman, our director of lifelong learning, and I, the senior minister, will lead this year's observance. When we all in the sanctuary have flowers, then it will be Jenny's time to introduce this week's entry in the hymn tournament. And after that, she and her helping teachers will lead the children to religious education time.
We begin. Whenever Norbert Chopik, who originated the flower ceremony, conducted his flower communion in Prague, he would say this proverb as he consecrated the flowers. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these thy messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts to be one in desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of thy most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship, but may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in this world.
The three of us here have a reading to teach you about the flower ceremony. Sometimes the ceremony is called flower communion, and this reading, written by Reginald Zottoli, gives some of the history. The flower communion service was created by Norbert Chopik, who lived from 1870 to 1942. He founded the Unitarian Church in what was then Czechoslovakia. He introduced this special service to that church on June 24th, 1923. For some time, he had felt the need for some symbolic ritual that would bind people more closely together. The format had to be one that would not alienate any who had forsaken other religious traditions. The traditional Christian communion service with bread and wine was unacceptable to the members of his congregation because of their strong reaction against the Catholic faith. So he turned to the native beauty of their countryside for elements of a communion that would be genuine to them. This simple service was the result. It was such a success that it was held yearly just before the summer recess of the church. The flower communion was brought to the United States in 1940 and introduced to the members of our Cambridge, Massachusetts church by Dr. Chopik's wife, Maya V. Chopik. The Czech-born Maya had met Norbert Chopik in New York City while he was studying for his PhD, and it was at her urging that Norbert left the Baptist ministry and turned to Unitarianism. The Chopiks returned to Czechoslovakia in 1921 and established the dynamic liberal church in Prague. Maya Chopik was ordained in 1926. It was during her tour of the United States that Maya introduced the flower communion, which had been developed in the Prague church at the Unitarian Church in Cambridge. Unfortunately, Maya was unable to return to Czechoslovakia due to the outbreak of World War II, and it was not until the war was over that Norbert Chopik's death in a Nazi concentration camp was revealed. From this beginning, the service has spread to many of our Unitarian Universalist congregations and has been adapted along the way.
People were asked to bring a flower of their choice, either from their own gardens or from the field or roadside. When they arrived at church, a large vase stood waiting in the vestibule, attended by 2 young members of the church school. Each person was asked to place their own flower in the vase. This signified that it was by their own free will they joined with the others. The vase that contained all the flowers was a symbol of the United Church Fellowship. The young attendants helped with the arrangement of the bouquet. Later, they carried the vase up to the front of the auditorium and placed it on a table there. Dr. Chopik then said a prayer, after which he walked over and consecrated the flowers while the congregation stood. The two attendants then took the vase back into the vestibule. After the service, as people left the church, they went to the vase and each took a flower from the vase other than the one that they had brought. The significance of the flower communion is that as no two flowers are alike, so no two people are alike. Yet each has a contribution to make. Together, the different flowers form a beautiful bouquet. Our common bouquet would not be the same without the unique addition of each individual flower, and thus it is with our church community. It would not be the same without each and every one of us. Thus, this service is a statement of our community.
By exchanging flowers, we show our willingness to walk together in our search for truth, disregarding all that might divide us. Each person takes home a flower brought by someone else, thus symbolizing our shared contribution, celebration in community. This communion of sharing is essential to a free people of a free religion. Reverend Norbert Chopik also wrote a prayer for the flower ceremony. Judy, Jenny, and I will give a version of it.
In the name of Providence, which implants in the seed the future of the flower, and in our hearts the longing for people to live in harmony.
In the name of the highest, in whom we move and who makes the parents, the children, the lover, and the loner what they are.
In the name of sages and great religious leaders who sacrificed their lives to hasten the coming of the age of mutual respect, let us renew our resolution sincerely to be
real people,
good family,
in relationship,
regardless of any kind of bar which estranges us from each other.
In this holy resolve, may we be strengthened, knowing that one Spirit, the Spirit of love, unites us, and endeavor for a more perfect and more joyful life. Amen. We don't want to wait until the end of the service to distribute flowers. So at this time now, we invite you to come forward and take a flower. I like to say so you'll have a flower to distract you or to play with while I'm speaking. But really, it's to bring the flowers among us now, to hold a little part of nature and not just view it in anticipation. When you have a flower, please return to your seat. And if you are here today but would prefer that we bring you a flower rather than you coming up here, please raise your hand and wave, and we can go to you. Jenny will take one of the little cups that we have with several flowers so that you can get one. And for our congregants seeing us on video, please appreciate a flower near you, whether in your dwelling or outdoors or just in your mind, and when you're bringing up your own image of a flower. And during this time with flowers, please look at your own blooming. Especially in this bright, colorful, florid season of spring, think about what you can be. Use your free thought and your faith. With what you bring here and the differences you take away from others' contributions, let yourself be transformed by these flowers. So we will move down here, and Jeffrey will cover us with music.
go.
What's the number?
1064.
Again? All right. Now is that special part of the service when the children rate the week's hymn. This hymn is number 1064, and it is called Blue Boat Home. It's in the teal hymnal. If you have never done this before, what you do is take your scorecard, which I believe you all have, and circle the number that corresponds with how much you like this hymn. A 1 if you didn't like it, a 10 if you loved it, and bring those scorecards back to me when we go back to the classroom. Grown-ups, you can pass by the RE bulletin board on your way to Fellowship Hall and vote for your favorite hymn with a little sticker. Vote early and vote often. When the contest is over, we will reveal which one from the list we have decided is the best hymn that rules them all.
And we can continue singing by singing for the children as they and their teachers leave for religious education. Please join me for our time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. This is Fragile and Rooted by Carolyn S. Owen Toole. See a blossom in your mind's eye. Allow it to fill the interior of your imagination. Greater perfection of form in nature cannot be imagined. With inward gaze, absorb each wondrous fluted petal. Slide down its humid surface until you drop as the dew into its velvety core. Immerse your senses in this safe chamber. Such fragile beauty gives impulse to weep. Slowly reverse the journey. As you ascend the shaft toward wider light, turn your imagination around and around to see its many facets. Stored within is the memory of all flowers. Marvel that this creation, while utterly fragile, yet undaunted, boldly buds forth, turning resolutely toward the sun. We too shimmer with expectation, exuding our own illumination, color, pulse, and scent. Vulnerable, still we venture our lives courageously toward hope and light, at once fragile and rooted. In meditation, contemplation, and prayer, let us observe 1 minute of silence.
Our reading this morning is Flower Communion Blessing by Amy Zucker Morgenstern, adapted. Each of us is a flower with a delicate beauty uniquely our own. We may be like sunflowers, turning always towards the light. We may be like night-blooming cereus, only displaying our fragrant petals when it is dark and we think no one can see. We may be hothouse flowers far from our native lands, cautiously tended within a harsh and unfamiliar climate. We may be gray-headed like dandelions, eager to launch the new generation with the first strong gust of wind, past our own bright youth, but ready to pass our wisdom on in precious gossamer-carried seeds. Some of us sometimes spring up overnight and fade in the hot glare. Some of us sometimes are roses, slowly assembling petal after tightly wrapped petal and revealing our full glory only when everything is in place. Sometimes we are roadside weeds, loveliness bursting improbably from the dust and debris. May we offer our beauty with the simplicity of flowers, expecting no recognition, hoping for nothing, giving out of what we are, and knowing it is enough. May our lives bloom like flowers.
Well, it was worth trying. I'm not a Buddha yet. I don't have ultimate wisdom to pass along. I cannot give you nirvana today. Take the 1,000 words I'll say now as inspiration, not as Dharma transmission. I acknowledge Buddhism in our flower ceremony Sunday. I'll expand on my flower twirling and awareness that I don't have Buddhahood by sharing words from my friend, Unitarian Universalist minister, and Zen priest, James Ishmael Ford, in his blog, Monkey Mind. He wrote, "Once upon a time, the world-honored one was at Vulture Peak. Before a vast crowd of lay practitioners, nuns and monks, angelic creatures, and even gods, he held up a single flower and twirled it. Of the assembled crowd, only the disciple Mahakashyapa responded, breaking into a wide grin. The Buddha, Lord of wisdom, physician of the heart, announced, 'I have the eye treasury of the true Dharma, the marvelous mind of nirvana, the true form of no form, the subtle gate of the Dharma. This wisdom does not depend on letters. It is transmitted outside all formal teachings. I now entrust it to Kashyapa,' from the anthology Gateless Gate by Wu Mingguang. This particular event, James Ford wrote, is a central image in Zen's evolved origin story. It is in part a response to the critical Chinese question to the new Buddhists, who are your parents? And it is something more. The story actually has no analog in Pali texts, or for that matter, Sanskrit. It's totally a Chinese thing. The core point is attributed to Bodhidharma, the legendary founder of Zen in China, sometime early in the 5th century. It is that more in the story of the twirled flower and the answering grin. A special transmission outside scriptures, not depending on words and letters, directly pointing to the mind, seeing into one's true nature and attaining Buddhahood. While these various points are a summation of the Zen inheritance, they actually aren't put into Bodhidharma's mouth until the beginning of the 12th century. Similarly, the whole story of the twirling flower has no documentary attestation, as a scholar might say, before Wu Man's wonderful version in The Gateless Gate, itself a 12th century document. So maybe not the words of the Buddha or his twirling flower, but that turning. Here we are invited into a liminal time where history, myth, and something else begins to present. Switching from James Ford's words to mine. I think we who live, follow, or appreciate religion are in liminal spaces ourselves. I'm speaking of religion in a way that includes people who proclaim no faith, those with one or more than one way, and people devout in their own religious existence, devoted to what they might call a higher power, or as a practice or discipline developed by themselves. In my labeling religion, I'm including spirituality, which I've come to state is both and simultaneously reaching out to the universe and turning into a person's own mind and body. James Ford wrote that the Buddha's transmission of the Dharma to, in essence, pass along the practice of finding wisdom in part through meditation and enlightenment, a way that could be given to people like most religions in a manner of using history, myth, and whatever a something else might be, is the point at which, in my interpretation, Buddhism becomes religion. A liminal aspect, impermanence, is core to humanity. We encounter liminality in ourselves, our thoughts, our universe. Liminal can be change, can be almost, can be motion, can be pause. Defined via Merriam-Webster, liminal is of, relating to, or situated at a sensory threshold, barely perceptible or capable of eliciting a response, and of, relating to, or being an intermediate state, phase, or condition, in between, transitional. That said, let me get to bloom, the title of today's talk. A flower bloom is liminal, isn't it? It's there, then not. Some might say the bloom is the ultimate expression of a flower. I can't give you the scientific reasons that a bloom appears. Sometimes it's not a finale, as there are plants that bloom before producing fruit. I have too little knowledge of perennials versus annuals and why some plants bloom and then die. Others have the bloom in advance of seed formation, and sometimes the plants just keep on having new blooms when the conditions are good. Consider our own blooming in the context of a rose bloom. I use the rose today because it is the national flower of the Czech Republic, which is where Prague is, and Norbert Chopik developed the flower ceremony in Prague. Here are the stages of a rose blooming, as I found on the website of an online florist, blossomcart.com. Bud. This is the initial stage of the blooming process, where the rose forms a bud at the end of a stem. The bud starts as a small green nub and gradually grows and changes color as it prepares to bloom. Opening. As the bud matures, the outer petals begin to open and unfurl. This stage is often considered one of the most beautiful, as the rose slowly reveals its inner petals. Blooming. The rose reaches full bloom when all its petals have opened. This is when the rose is most fragrant and colorful. Wilting. After a few days to a week, the rose begins to wilt. The petals lose their vibrant color and start to fall off, and the rose prepares to return to a dormant state until the next blooming cycle. We all have our times of bud, opening, blooming, and wilting. Multiple, short-term and long blooming, single blooms for some circumstances, and even clusters for others. My hope is that, like the rose, whenever our vibrant color is lost and our petals begin to fall off, may the dormancy we have next be a time of refreshment and our blooming cycles frequent. Be good flowers. You give the joy to the world that flowers do. You do so naturally, as the sight of you can bring joy to another. And you do so purposefully by consciously transmitting your own dharma of cosmic and individual existence. May our lives bloom like the flowers. So be it.
Thank you, Tim. It's offering time, and we have begun once again to pass the plate. The challenge is that we do it without ushers, one basket for each side of the aisle, and you in the congregation, please pass the basket along. You might have to get up to take it to someone sitting a little bit distant from you down the pew or in the pew behind you, so do a brief stretch in preparation if you need to. When the baskets reach the back of the sanctuary, one designated person will take them to the office. And if the passed basket goes past you without your being able to give, We'll still have a basket in the lobby so you can give your donation on your way to coffee hour. If you have cash and want that credited to your contribution, you might put it in an envelope that you can find in the pew racks and put your name on it. Or if you give a check, just note on the memo line if you want the funds directed towards your pledge or another purpose. There are other ways to give too. You can use either QR code shown on our screen, one for Venmo, the other going to our website, or you can go to our website, uutoledo.org, and click Give, then Online Giving. You may also mail a check to First Unitarian Church, 3205 Glendale Avenue, Toledo, Ohio, 43614. As First Unitarian Church of Toledo is a self-supporting congregation, we are very grateful for all of your contributions.
Number 404. It's the coming soon part of our service where we tell you what's on the calendar for next week, we give some announcements, and we also let you know what's up for right after the service. Join us for Spiritual Forum at 9:45 on Sunday, when we will continue our study of the film Long Strange Trip. I'm told we're almost at the end of this 6-disc DVD series that explores the history of Unitarian and Universalist thought and practice from the early liberal faith at the beginning of the Christian era to what we know today as Unitarian Universalism. Join us for this deep dive into our faith and philosophy. And then for the Sunday service at 11 a.m. here in the sanctuary and on our YouTube channel, we'll begin a month of special services. Next Sunday, June 2nd, Jenny Gottman will be the leader. The other Sundays in June will have Phil Park Thomas, Soroya King, the Sunday service that will be presented for the online Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly, and that will likely be in Fellowship Hall at our regular service time. And then closing out the month will be our student minister seminarian, Melissa Jeter. I also need to add a personal note here in coming soon. Kind of a soon is relative. Beginning after today's service and continuing through the 30th of June, I'm going to be on a combination of study leave, vacation leave, and special assignment, depending on when I'm engaged in which of multiple projects, and including a time when I'll be away with my family. So I won't regularly be immediately responsive to telephone calls or emails, but I will check voicemail and my inbox pretty regularly. So the best way to be in touch with me is to reach out, and please do so, but leave a message and ask me to contact you. I'd much rather you reach out and contact me rather than later on say, well, I just didn't want to bother you. I'd rather know and be able to help if I can. Normally, some of this would be taken care of by our office manager, but you might know that we don't currently have an office manager as a result of changes to that position related to the budget the congregation passed last week. And we need to hire a new applicant. If you have ideas of people who are not members of this congregation who might do well as a part-time but permanent office manager, please refer them to me or a member of the board. And I told you about the Sunday services in June already, so we will have Sundays covered and covered quite well, I think. I plan to be back in the pulpit on July 7th, possibly with a summer series of talks for the full month. Then in August, we're planning to have lay members of this congregation each Sunday. And I'll be around, except when I'm not. Judy, what do you have for coming soon?
We've already had 2 sessions of the Wednesday chair yoga class in Fellowship Hall. It continues for 5 more weeks, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. The cost is $5 per class. The final coming soon entry is for me to invite you to join us in Fellowship Hall after we've finished our service for coffee, conversation, and social time, plus a potluck. And if you didn't bring food to share yourself, please come and have some of ours.
As Judy extinguishes our chalice flame, please join me in reciting the words for us figuratively to send some Unitarian Universalist fire into the community. And then after this, our postlude for congregational singing will be number 8, a hymn by Norbert Chopik, who originated the flower ceremony. It's Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, and I think it has 4 verses, so we'll try all of them. And now, our chalice words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.